to start with, who am I and what are we doing? So my name is David Toussaint, as you heard already. So I'm a co-head of products for Communardo. Communardo is a German company with offices all over Germany and Austria, solution partner, and also gold marketplace top vendor marketplace partner. So, and I'm here for our products department. So Communardo builds products for smarter enterprise collaboration. That's what Confluence and Atlassian Tools are all about. So we'll strive to enhance it even more. And we have plenty of clients in basically all over the world. So not reading those numbers. You can read them on your own. I guess it's that's not that interesting. What may be of interest is that we're in the marketplace for I think 11 years or so. Our oldest app is just turned 11 earlier this year, which is quite old actually for this business. So to start with the actual content of the presentation and not wasting too much time here in the introduction. So we all know, we all work with several tools, and working with one tool is fine, but eventually leads to a situation that the information in tool X is just in tool X, and it kind of feels like a silo, which is okay for the time being maybe, but at some point in time we discover that information needs to be shared, and how information sharing between tools and colleagues helps you to eventually get more productive. So this is what we're going to look into that. So knowledge and information sharing is important, and I'll tell you why. So I'm citing a few numbers here from a fairly recent study or report, which I found pretty interesting, and I found myself in there quite often when I'm reading those numbers. So they found the sources linked here in the presentation. You can see that afterwards if you want to dig more into that. They found that 42% of institutional knowledge is unique to the individual, which means I know it and you don't. So which again could be fine for some kind of information, but 42% is nearly half of all information. So that's not what's helping a company to grow its business and to be available in the future as well. And they also found that 81% of employees report that they are feeling frustrated when they can't get the information they need, because it's either just in another tool, or it is unique to the individual that has the information. And again, it's limiting productivity here. So those numbers show, and I guess you can relate to that this is a topic that every company at a certain size needs to tackle in one way or another. The same source, the same study showed that knowledge workers waste approximately over 5 hours per week, either for waiting for vital information from their colleagues or working to recreate the existing institutional knowledge that they just don't have access to. More than 5 hours per week, based on a 40 hours per week working time that we in Germany have, at least, and in most parts of Europe. This is like 20% or so. No, a bit over 10%, 15%. So it's quite a lot. It's close to one working day. Just imagine that. And if we would meet in person right now, which we can't because this is a virtual presentation, a virtual meeting, and we appreciate the chance to do that. But if we would have met in person, I would have asked you a question, and that is, how many systems do you need for your daily work? Like really need? Is it 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 or 20? So maybe you briefly think about that, and I'll show what others are experiencing here, and I can also share where I would locate ourselves in as a company. So 61% of the people that got asked this question replied it's 4 or more systems you need for a daily work. And this is easy to imagine. You probably have Outlook or something like that to handle your emails. You surely have Confluence and Jira, so we're at 3 already. Maybe you have Slack or Teams, so that's 4. And the doesn't include any specialized software you may use for the actual business your company is doing. So sounds a lot, but actually it's not a lot. But they even found that 13% of the people they asked need to access 11 or even more systems you remember for your daily work, which is on a day-to-day basis. This is, by the way, the side that I would position ourselves in as a company. So I totally can relate to the things that, to the challenges that arise with that. The question here is, how do I get the information from all of the 11 or even more systems without just having all systems open all the time? And if I'm searching for something, putting the same search string into each application, which probably isn't sufficient here. And how was the name of the document I was actually looking for? I mean, I may know what's inside it, but how do I find it? So this brings us to the actual topic of today's talk, and it's integrating Atlassian Office 365 tools for a unified digital workplace. Digital workplace is the thing that you're probably sitting in front of, either at home, like I do right now due to the current situation and pandemic, or in your real office. And I want to give you a few examples of how that could work and what products could help here. So, you know those icons. One is SharePoint on the left-hand side, and the right-hand side is Confluence. So how do I integrate Confluence content into SharePoint? Do I need this at all? Again, a question I would have asked in person, which is just not possible right now. Right now, if you ever use the SharePoint wiki and you know Confluence, which I'm just guessing because we're here in an Atlassian day, you probably know using the Sharepoint wiki is a pain. So this is the main reason why you would want to embed Confluence content into SharePoint, to say, put a real wiki in SharePoint, a wiki that's usable and readable, and it looks neat. So, and we can do that with an app. It's called Sharepoint Connector for Confluence, and it works in both directions, as we'll see in a few seconds. And here we can see how that looks. So I'm in SharePoint. This is how a SharePoint wiki looks like. And you're having a web part, which is the equivalent for macros, basically macros in Confluence. And then you're having a web part, and it's say, I want to embed a page of Confluence or a blog post or blog or whatever content I'm having, selecting that either via a menu or copy and pasting the URL, and you have the result here, which basically is the same SharePoint page, but just have a Confluence page rendered within SharePoint. So you don't have the Confluence navigation here. You don't have the actual action buttons to like edit the page or create a new one or so. It's just the plain content with comments, inline comments, as you can see here. And it's way easier to handle if you're having the same content already in the other system. So that's very neat. At least I think so. And as I mentioned, it also works the other way around. Like if you're having Confluence, I want to put SharePoint content into Confluence. And again, why would you want to do that? While Confluence is really a wiki you could love easily, document management isn't so much of a strength of Confluence. So I know you can work with attachments, and there are options or apps to lock attachments so that no one else edits that. But other than that, and they're versioned somehow, but other than that, it's not really a pleasure to work with documents in Confluence, other than, let's say, pictures or images you use for formatting. So this is where SharePoint really shines, by the way. You can work with Office documents. At least you can work in the same document with multiple persons, similar to the editing in Confluence pages, where many people can edit a single page. And this is the same for SharePoint documents. So this is the main reason for me to put content into SharePoint, to have this worked on by many people at the same time. So this is a Confluence page, and this is a server page, but it also works in Confluence Cloud, by the way. And you have one or two macros that you can insert here, and it either displays, like you can see on the left-hand side, a list of documents. Think of that like a list of folders and contents of folders and whatever types of files you have in there. Depending on the file type, there are different options to either just open it or edit it directly. Or on the right-hand side, you see that wonderful bridge. Actually, it's quite close here and very famous for photographers. But anyways, you can embed the full document here. In this case, it's a PDF, but it also works with PowerPoint and Excel files and Word documents, of course, to scroll through the document to actually see it in Confluence without the need to navigate to SharePoint. And if you want to edit that, just click on the document and it opens the Word or PowerPoint or Excel web app, depending on the document you're working with. So, which is quite easy to use again for the end user. So another way of integrating the two platforms is Microsoft Teams. If you're using SharePoint, and especially if you're often using Office 365, you're most definitely also using Microsoft Teams, or having it at least, no matter if you use it yet or not. Microsoft is pushing that heavily. And Teams is wonderful for chatting with different people or groups. And we made an integration with Confluence that helps you finding your colleagues and getting in touch with them very fast. So everyone knows the people directory in Confluence, I guess, which is, well, okay, usable. You get a list of people and that's it basically. But with the app, user profiles for Confluence, and I'm showing that later again, we not only have a nice looking people directory, so you see it looks different than Confluence, the Confluence default, but also having additional details for each person, like where is he or she located, who's the manager of that person, what company are they working with, and potential many other fields that you can set up and synchronize via the user directory, the LDAP or Active Directory, for example. You can use that to search people based on that, say, people metadata. And if you click on one of those, or like here as a macro, there's a button, Start Microsoft Teams Chat. And what that does, and I can't show you, unfortunately, right now because we're using Teams for production, I can start a Teams chat to engage with that person directly right from Confluence. So like if I hover over the administrator name here, created by administrator, I would get that message that pop up and have a chat in Teams directly. This is also available for Jira in a very similar way. So it really helps people getting closer together. And then the last option here I wanted to highlight is integration of, you see many things. We get SharePoint, we get Jira, we get Teams again, and Confluence, like all of what we mentioned before already. And so imagine you're having a situation where you're working with several projects or in several teams maybe. And each of those projects has several tools like the ones we just saw or even others. It's very easy to get lost. Do I need to go to that Jira project or that other Confluence space, or was it a Teams channel, or was it a document in that SharePoint side on the other Confluence space as attachment? I don't know. And this is why we created an app. It's called Space Navigator, and it's not available in the Atlassian Marketplace, by the way, but in Microsoft App Stores. So this app gives you an overview of all we call teams or projects, as you can say. Each tile represents a team or a project, and for each tile, you got those icons of the tools that are associated with it, with that project or team. Is it Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, Confluence, and Jira again? And again, those teams have some sort of metadata you can filter for to get an overview out of those 102 spaces in that presentation here. But for many companies, it's more like 4 digits number of spaces or teams here. Or you can just search for it by name or description, things like that, or project lead maybe if that is associated here. So here you see it again, highlighted a bit. it's easily accessible for everyone in the team or in your company. And I got quick links to each relevant tool, so you don't need to search through each space and project in Confluence and Sharepoint and scroll through all channels and teams. You could have a direct link here for everything that's related for that single project or team. So you can even put that into Microsoft Teams, by the way. A little bit of extra effort needed for this, but so like having a project directory or project overview within Microsoft Teams if you're using that as your main tool. But it could also work for SharePoint. So from a technology, it doesn't really matter. Checking how much time we do have, we still have a few minutes left. Moving over to my demo system. And so this is it's on the wrong screen, sorry. There you go. This is a Confluence Cloud instance here, and apparently I haven't used it for a while. That's why I'm getting all those information bubbles here. And it's reloading. So what we see here, thanks. What we see here is just a regular Confluence page, and embedded on that page are a few links to people, which is just normal Confluence functionality here. And and apparently I need to log in order to see it. So, and while that loads, I'm just firing up another one in the second tab. So, yeah, it's coming, I guess. Yeah. That's a cool thing with cloud software. Everything loads on its own, and you get multiple waiting icons for each app and each macro that's needed. So while that loads, quickly going over to SharePoint here to see the actual documents we're having. So this page is set up as a organization of a summer party for Communardo, which just got canceled due to the current situation. So it's like a fictional view, but well, anyways. So we got this is a SharePoint associated with it, and we got lots of files here, and we got a presentation and some images and some Excel files, I guess, in here. And so actually they are supposed to appear here. So this is the last try. Otherwise, I would just move over to the server version, which I'm having open here already. So, okay, this doesn't load. A pity. It's a bit strange. Let's check back later. We have a very similar scenario, just with the different content here in our Confluence server. So yeah, this is a different instance. This is obviously locally hosted, and again, in the end, we're just having a presentation embedded here, and I can scroll through the whole presentation. It's not the presentation we're just seeing, but I can just work with that. And below here, I'm having a list of documents, and for each document, I can say, well, open in Office Online, download if I want to have a copy of that, delete if I'm having the permissions to do that. Or I can just scroll through each individual folder and upload files, because some files you can't edit in the browser. Imagine having a zip file or a video, any other thing that you're not able to edit in the browser. You could just download it and upload it again, all from SharePoint without actually needing to go to SharePoint. So this is pretty easy. And yeah, also you see here that this is my profile card, and if I'm clicking on that, I have the Start Microsoft Teams button, which again, I'm not going to show now because I'm not sure if that breaks my connection here. So this is where we actually have access to the Teams, and yeah, so I'll briefly go into the people directory. So you've seen that, and after that, I'm checking back the Confluence Cloud and that I decided to work in the end or not. So this is our people directory, and we have public sign up enabled for this instance. So we have many people that don't have useful profiles here. But let's search for Communardo because most of my colleagues are friendly people with profile pictures, etc. As you can see here. So, and yeah, you see myself here as well. So if I'm going onto the old profile, I can do that. So I can either just search here by text, or I could say add a new filter. I want to see everyone who is from the department. Oh, sorry. Team Dornbirn, which is one of our locations, and I have a typo in here, apparently. Or I used the wrong field. Yeah, no. So you see here, wherever team is in the department, which isn't a useful query, by the way, you could just filter that. Or if it's a location, like an office location, I can say everyone who is either in San Francisco or in Dresden. So this is a fixed value, not free text as we had with the other field. So show me everyone from Dresden. And apparently no one said that in their profile, which isn't super helpful now. And all the information here you're having in that dropdown for searching is potentially coming from an external system. So I can show you how that looks like. This is my actual user profile, and many of the information here, if I edit that, I can't edit directly because it's coming from an external system. And based on that information, like the manager, we can also use that to create an organizational chart and other content based on the information that's centrally managed. So checking back if the SharePoint Online decides to work again with Confluence Cloud, and it's not. So I like to check if we're having any questions here. Let's see that.
Hello, David.
Oh no, this is a pure
David?
screen sharing. We probably don't have questions.
David, can you hear us?
Or at least I can't see them directly.
David, can you hear us?
So I'll put in questions that usually rise up here when showing things like that, especially for SharePoint and Confluence integration. And one is how to do permissions work. Like if I'm seeing a page where SharePoint content is embedded in Confluence, who will be able to see that PowerPoint presentation that's loading here on the right-hand side? And the answer to that is everyone who's allowed to. So if you're using a central user directory, which I hope you all do, you usually use groups to grant permissions to spaces in Confluence and to sites in SharePoint. And if that is the case and they will match, then everyone who is able to see the Confluence page will also be able to see that presentation. Otherwise, you'll get a nice looking error message that says something like, either you don't have permissions or you're not logged in with the right user. Please talk to your team lead or something like that. So permissions are managed by the app itself. So there's actually no way that people can get more or can see more than they're actually allowed to see anyways within the individual system. Yeah. So as you see, in general, this is available for cloud as well and server and data center. Some of the other options we just shared will be available for cloud soon, but are available for the server and data center right now. So feel free to ask us anything. I'm briefly going back to the presentation because I wanted to encourage you to try it on your own. So visit the Atlassian Marketplace, grab an evaluation license of your of those 2 apps and 3 apps, and let us know what you think. If you're having any questions, just file a support case, get in touch with me because you saw my contact details earlier. Questions won't work here apparently, but we have plenty of customers that are trusting in our apps all around the world, as we showed earlier. So this is my final slide. Thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate that, and I hope to see you in person maybe next year, or we'll see how that'll develop.